On this edition of Early Look, I'm going to be previewing the UFC 325 co-main event, Dan Hooker, Benoit Saint-Denis. My name is James Lynch. If you've never watched the show before, I'm going to go through a bunch of different stats and intangibles. Then I'm going to give you my prediction at the end of this video. Some of the stuff may have relevance, it may not. Let me know in the comments after you're done watching this video which way you're leaning on this fight. Would love to hear your opinion on this one. And like we always do on this show, let's do a quick tale of the tape. Dan Hooker, 24-13, Benoit Saint-Denis, 16-3, 35-30, so a bit of an age gap there. 6 feet tall to 5'11", 75-73. So Hooker going to be bigger, but Benoit Saint-Denis 5 years younger. Something to keep in mind here. Again, 3-round fight, not 5 rounds for the co-main event. So keep that in mind. That may be, well, we'll see who that favors in this one. It'll be interesting. But let's start first with Dan the Hangman Hooker. Big fight, big opportunity for him to bounce back. So I mentioned the record there, 24-13. He's got 11 knockouts, seven submissions, and 6 decisions. Currently ranked number 6 in the lightweight division. He is 35 years old, 6 feet tall with a 75.5-inch reach. So he'll have a 1-inch height and 2.5-inch reach advantage. Trains out of City Kickboxing. He's got performance of the night 3 times. He's got fight of the night 3 times. Did not have an amateur debut. Made his pro debut way back in March of 2009. He's been fighting for a long time. Actually, well, yeah, the reason I say, because it says amateur here, but the amateur fight was after the pro fight. So we'll just stick with the fact that he didn't have an amateur debut, and it was 2009 was when he had his amateur debut. Did not make his UFC debut till June of 2014, but still, he's been in the UFC for a long time, over 11 years, which is nuts. Coming up to 12 years here. And that debut was at featherweight against Ian Entwistle way back in the day in June of 2014. So it's been a long time. He is 14-9 in the UFC. He's got 9 stoppage wins. He's got a lot of notable wins in the UFC. We'll go through some of them. And these guys at all one point were ranked. Gilbert Burns, Ali Quinta, Paul Felder, Jalen Turner, Mateusz Gamrot. He's also got a lot of losses too. And a lot of these were at featherweight. Yair Rodriguez, Jason Knight, Edson Barbosa, Dustin Poirier, Michael Chandler, Islam Makhachev, Arnold Allen, and most recently Arman Tsarukyan. He's had a bunch of layoffs. Let's go through some of them, more recent ones. So if you go back to the Claudio Puelles fight back in 2022, going from Puelles to Turner, there was a 238-day layoff. Going from Turner to Gamrot, there was a 406-day layoff. Going from Gamrot to Arman, there was a 462-day layoff, the longest of his career. But this fight, 70 days in between the Arman fight and this one. So nice turnaround here for Dan Hooker. He just fought on November 22nd, going to be fighting Benoit Saint-Denis on the 31st. So that's something to keep in mind. Is that good? Is that bad? I don't know. We'll have to see. Hooker's had a couple close fights in his career. I'll just mention those quickly. There was the Paul Felder fight. If you go to MMAdecisions.com, you'll see the Paul Felder fight was a split decision win for him there. If you go look at the media scorecards there, 4 media members scored the fight for Hooker, 1 scored it a draw, and 12 scored it for Felder. So a lot of people felt like Felder should have won that fight. And then there was the Gamrot fight, where he won a split decision. That was back in August of 2024. 8 media members scored the fight for Hooker, 9 scored it for Gamrot. So again, majority felt like Gamrot should have won that fight. Let's go look at Hooker's stats. Significant strikes landed per minute, 4.89. Striking accuracy is 48%. Striking defense, 50%. Does get hit a lot. Something to keep in mind. Takedown average, 0.71. Takedown accuracy, 34%. Takedown defense is 77%, which is interesting because he's been taken down a little bit, especially that last fight. And his sub-average is 0.5. That's everything you need to know about Dan Hooker. Now let's take a look at his opponent, Benoit Saint-Denis, the God of War, coming in off a couple nice wins. He is 16-3. He's got 5 knockouts, 11 submissions, and no decisions. He's currently ranked number 8 in the lightweight division. I mentioned it there, 30 years old, 5'11", with a 73-inch reach. So his only advantage in this fight is that he's 5 years younger than Hooker. He's got performance of the night 4 times. He's against Gabriel Miranda, Matt Frivola, Mauricio Ruffi, and Beneil Dariush. He's got performance of the, he had performance of the month, which was against Matt Frivola. Did not have an amateur debut, went straight to the pros in February of 2019. And just to give you guys an idea in the experience gap here, Dan Hooker had 24 fights by the time Benoit Saint-Denis made his pro debut in 2019. So that's something to keep in mind. But also with that comes the wear and tear. Benoit Saint-Denis did not make his UFC debut until October of 2021. By that time, Hooker had 17 UFC fights. Because remember, Hooker fought a lot at featherweight and then moved up to the lightweight division as well. So just wanted to point out the experience gap there. As far as notable wins go, Thiago Moises was ranked at one point. We'll add him in there. Obviously, the win over Ruffi, and then most recently, Beneil Dariush. His only notable losses are Dustin Poirier and Renato Moicano. He's had a couple layoffs going from the Zaleski to Stoltz fight. There was a 216-day layoff, and then going from Miranda to Bonfim, there was a 271-day layoff. But since then, 2 fights in 2023, had 2 fights in 2024, had 3 fights in 2025. So fairly active. That is one area he does have over Hooker, been a lot more active than Dan Hooker has over the last little bit. So something to keep in mind there. Hasn't had any close fights or any major injuries. Let's look at his stats. Significant strikes landed per minute, 5.07. So that's actually higher than Dan Hooker, if I'm not mistaken. Not by much, though. Striking accuracy is at 55%. Striking defense at 42%. That's a big red flag there. Does get hit a lot. 4.33 takedown average. Takedown accuracy is at 37%. His takedown defense is at 70%, and his sub average is 1.6. Let's go have a look at the odds. Dan Hooker right now about plus 200 on FanDuel. Benoit Saint-Denis almost a 3-1 favorite here, which is a bit surprising. I know he'd be favored, didn't know by that much. And Tapology telling a similar story here. Saint-Denis, 79% of people picking Saint-Denis, 21% picking Hooker. Majority of people feeling 67.6 that Saint-Denis will submit Dan Hooker. Only 13.2% by decision, and then 19.2% by KO TKO. Dan Hooker, 51.8% by KO TKO, and then 46.2% by decision. All right, which way am I leaning in this one? Well, I'm going to go with Benoit Saint-Denis. I think the momentum continues here, and I'm going to go Saint-Denis by second round submission. And the reason I'm going this way is Benoit Saint-Denis, 69% of his wins are by submission. That's 11 total. He typically does win by submission, just like he did in his, 2 fights ago against Rufy. Got the face crank win there, and then Kyle Prepelec submitted him there. He gets a lot of submission victories, but his stand-up's good too. We saw that with the 16-second win over Beneil Dariush, so he can kind of do it all. Hooker has 77% in takedown defense, but he's been submitted 4 times in his career. That's 31% of his losses. So Hooker, while he does have the good takedown defense, once you can actually get a hold in, he has lost before. So he's got 4 losses by submission. That's another reason why I like Saint-Denis with the style matchup. Benoit Saint-Denis is younger. Now his striking defense is not great at 40-something% or whatever I just mentioned there. 42%, which is concerning. But as far as the overall damage, it's Dan Hooker. He's had injuries. He's been out for a while. He's older. Dan Hooker, like I mentioned, has had, 17 more UFC fights by the time that Saint-Denis made his debut. He's definitely taken more damage. And actually, come to think of it, I think a lot of the damage that Saint-Denis, the reason this is so low is that Zaleski fight at welterweight, where he took a ton of punishment in that one. That was probably most of it, actually, looking at that fight now. Yeah, look at that, 149-67. That's part of the reason why his striking defense isn't great. But Dan Hooker's striking defense at 50% too. So that's something to keep around as well. Hooker, I mentioned, has taken a quick turnaround. I don't know if that's such a good idea because he got absolutely dominated in his last fight by Arman Tsarukyan. And Arman's like one of the best, but like this was a total beatdown in this fight. 2 of 4 takedowns, 42-10 in significant strikes. The red is Arman. You can see it there, well ahead in that fight. So we'll see. Like Hooker, I think if this card wasn't in Australia, Hooker's probably fighting a bit later. But I think he wanted to be on this card, and the UFC put him on this card. Whereas Saint-Denis got a little bit more time to come back in here and kind of get his footing here. He fought in November. But again, he only fought for 16 seconds, so it's a little bit different. But yeah, listen, I picked Saint-Denis before and it's backfired. It certainly happened, but I just think now he's finally hit his stride. I was just so impressed with that win over Rufy in his last fight, and I think Rufy hits harder than Dan Hooker does, and I just don't think Hooker's going to have like a vintage knockout win. Like you have to go, when was the last time Hooker even had a finish? It's the Puelles fight, right? Back in 2022, I think with Saint-Denis, just too well-rounded, 5 years younger. That's enough for me to pick him here. And the style matchup, you got a guy who's got 11 wins by submission. So I think Saint-Denis goes out there and does what he's done before, which is get that, second round submission like he did to Kyle Prepelec. Maybe, feel out the first round a little bit, but eventually go out there and get it done. And remember the Poirier fight, he had staff, and I think that definitely slowed him down. But that first round against Poirier, even if you go look at the stats here, with Benoit Saint-Denis, I think that first round he was actually having a lot of success against Poirier, right? First round strikes. Look, he totally outlanded Poirier, 38-12. So again, if he's hanging with a guy like Poirier, I think he can hang with Hooker. So Benoit Saint-Denis, second round submission is going to be my official pick. So let me know in the comments which way you're leaning here. What is your prediction? Would love to hear from you. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @Lynch on Sports. My name is James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.